I'm a little nervous about making this video, not because I'm a diehard lover of this technique, but I know a lot of coffee lovers are going to scoff at me for even talking about this topic, but I don't care. I'm not scared of you. Alright, so today's video is all about the Keurig cup. What I believe is fundamentally wrong with them, what I think is good about them, and also what I think you can do to improve them. Let's start with what I think is fundamentally wrong with them. So, what is fundamentally wrong with the Keurig cup? Just to kind of start this conversation, I do want to state what I am interested in. I'm most interested in trying to figure out the best way to make a cup of coffee in any brewing technique. This one specifically with the Keurig. I'm not interested in trying to figure out how to make the best cup of hot chocolate or tea. I strongly recommend do not put those in your Keurig machine because they just, one, they clog them up, and two, the coffee flavor just runs over to all of the flavors, and then the tea flavor, I mean, it just doesn't work. It's gross. So just don't put hot chocolate in your Keurig. With that said, let's continue. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry about the sound outside. I can't really control that. That's why I got this little microphone to try to hopefully help with that. Sorry. Bear with me. We're all on a shoestring budget here. Okay, what I believe is fundamentally wrong with the Keurig cup. There's kind of two things that kind of disqualify the Keurig as like a high quality brewing process. The first one is actually the coffee, not necessarily the machine. I've done a lot of research into this and trying to figure out how to actually manufacture these Keurig cups. And the problem is with kind of large scale, affordable Keurig, you have your coffee that's roasted in one spot. It's generally shipped to another building to grind it all, and then shipped to another building to package it all. Like, the shelf life of coffee after it's ground is literally only like 2 hours. So, I mean, it's just like bleeding flavor. There's no way you can maintain all those aromas after it's been ground when it's going shipped from one building to another plant to another plant. It's just not gonna happen. And so that's why when you get these coffees and you drink them, they taste like they're like stale. Even if they've been packaged like the day before, it's because they've been sitting out, kind of ground, and have been waiting to be packaged. And I'm sorry, you grind coffee and don't keep it in like a sealed container after like an hour, it's not going to taste good. That's my like main gripe with the Keurig coffee. It's mainly the cups. It's like it's hard to make coffee stay fresh, and this is just one big fundamental flaw with the K-cup. Ugh. I can't stand outside snows. Sorry. All right, we're just gonna. Okay, cool. The other thing I think is flawed about the Keurig machine is the brew time. Most brewing techniques, apart from espresso, is no less than like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Like, coffee needs time to sit in the hot water to really extract the flavors. And with Keurig, it's, you could say, not more than like 40 seconds, which is amazing because it's very quick, but it also has very little time to actually properly extract a lot of the nuanced flavors that are in coffee. And the only coffees that really do well in that short amount of brewing time are really high roasted, highly flavored coffees, which are good in their own right, but it's just, you can't have any like medium roast or light roast coffees. There's just not enough time to actually brew and extract the flavors. So basically, those darker roasts do much better in that short amount of brewing time, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It limits you to what you actually can use that machine for. So other than those two major kind of flaws with the machine, I actually think it's still a pretty amazing machine. It's so convenient and it makes coffee really quickly. And I definitely think you can actually make a decent cup of coffee with it, but you do have to do some tweaking and kind of make sure you stay in kind of some strict guidelines to produce like what I think is the best way to drink a certain type of coffee. So let's show you guys what those little rules are. This is a refillable Keurig coffee cup. It allows you to put in whatever coffee you would like in your machine. So personally, I put in my Jetty Bay black coffee. It's a dark roast El Salvador, which can still deal a hefty amount of flavor even with that shortened brew time. Now, let's talk about the grind. So because of that shortened brew time, which extracts less flavor, you do have to grind the beans a little bit smaller. Not super fine, just more fine. Kind of like a coarse sand. Now I opened up a Keurig cup, and on average, it has about 8 to 10 grams of ground coffee per capsule. In the refillable Keurig cup, you can also put 10 grams of coffee, but I like coffee a little stronger in the morning, so on average, I'll do about 10 to 15 grams of coffee. So I start my coffee letting one cycle of hot water go through the machine. That does two things. One, heats up my mug, and two, removing any residual coffee flavors that have been left in the machine. And then, just that, as simple as a Keurig machine is, I set the machine to 8 fluid ounces, press a button, and in a couple of seconds I have a pretty good cup of coffee, and ready to start my day. Well, there we go. Hopefully those little tips and tricks about the Keurig machine kind of upped your coffee game at home, and hopefully this video is useful for you guys. And just kind of continuing on this topic just a little more, like the Keurig machine you can do to 10 to 12 fluid ounces of water, and I generally don't do that just because it does kind of water down the coffee, and I really like that coffee flavor to really kind of be the predominant flavor and not kind of watered down. Again, like I wouldn't ever do a medium roast or light roast with the Keurig machine just because it just doesn't really conveys the most quality in terms of that bean. I really would stick to just a darker roast just because the flavors are just so much more kind of bold, and those flavors do come forward even with that shortened brewing time. But there we go. I'm going to kind of leave it right there. But some of you guys did ask some questions, and I did want to get to those. So we have one from KDB. What is the best milk to drink with coffee? Any suggestions on a dairy-free milk? I personally think just whole milk is really great. Not necessarily like cream, not necessarily like fat-free milk. I think fat-free milk doesn't necessarily make sense. The whole point of adding milk is to add some sort of fat to your coffee, because fat kind of blocks flavor receptors on your tongue, and you necessarily aren't dulling any of those like bitterness or sour tones that you're trying to kind of achieve with adding basically an additive or creamer. Whole milk, all lattes are generally made with whole milk. If you can get a grass-fed whole milk, I think those flavors are really delicious and actually works very well in almost any coffee styles. Milk substitutes, I absolutely love oat milk. Oat milk I think is super underrated. I think there's actually a shortage right now in America. It's like very popular. It's kind of trending. Almond milks. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of soy milks. I don't think they really add much to coffees. I think you should absolutely try oat milk. It's a really delicious creamer to coffee, and I think it does exactly what milk does and adds a really delicious flavor that complements, opposed to like some of the nut milk. Some of the nut milks tend to have too strong of a flavor that I'm not a huge fan of. They don't really flip my boat. Okay, next one. From Patrick Mills. Cool video, Pat. Thank you. Why does the bean temperature drop in the graph? Stay right there. So in a previous episode, I showed this graph, which is technically a coffee roasting recipe. It's kind of the process where the bean starts to be roasted, and this drop in temperature is actually when you add the coffee. And so I do everything in Celsius just because I'm weird, but you start it at around 200 degrees Celsius, 210 degrees Celsius, which is around 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and it drops down to about 88 degrees Celsius. And this is actually the chart to watch how the coffee kind of rises throughout its cooking process. I actually have an electric roaster just because my building doesn't have gas. It's a little cleaner and kind of safer for what I'm doing, particularly here. It's not necessarily the best. It's just one way to do it. But I have an electric roaster, and my charts are going to look different than other people's charts. So if you are trying to look to roast coffee at home, keep that in mind. I have kind of a different style of roasting coffee here, which there's no real problems with electric roasters. They kind of tend to have a less smokier product and kind of take a little longer time to cook the beans. But I actually think that in some circumstances they're actually very good because they're very precise, and I can really kind of I can control the temperature very easily. But so that's it. That's it for the questions. Thank you guys so much for asking them, and thank you for watching this video. And let me think. Is there anything to be said? I don't think there's anything else to be said. Well, thank you very much for watching from the Coffee Corner of America. My name is Patrick Erskine here at Jetty Bay headquarters, and I will see you guys in the next one.